webinar. We are delighted to have scheduled this great webinar for you to learn and to benefit regarding what it takes to be an effective early career researcher. And we are fortunate to have a very renowned professor who has been at the front line of developing early career researchers in globally, both in Asia, in Africa. He has actually visited Nigeria severally, and he has raised a whole lot of early career research, and happened to also be one of his mentees. He has mentored us in several ways. We are really fortunate to have him here. There is no other better person to have actually come up to speak about this particular subject if it's not Prof. So basically, I'm going to share Prof. Profile. That's not actually all of his profile. He is a professor. Um, he lectures at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He happened to also be the founder and the managing director of Global Health Focus, and also the managing editor of Biometry Central, the journal Global Health Research Policy. Unless I forget, he also lectures at the University of Philippines. So he's someone who has wide experience when it comes to developing country and vis-a-vis developed countries. So when you are talking about developing early career researcher, he, especially for undergraduate students, he also teaches as the postgraduate. He have a lot of experience in this regard because he has actually developed a whole lot of persons in this aspect. So without so much, we let Prof in now so that Prof can take off from where I stop. We are really happy to receive Prof to speak to us, to speak to all Nigeria students in this very all important webinar. Prof, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Leonard. I'm very happy with your invitation, and you know very well that this is one of my advocacies to promote research at a very young age, particularly in the African region. So what I'm going to present today is probably a keynote for the research program that you are going to hold for a number of participants. I understand there's so many of them. And welcome to the world of research. So for this afternoon or evening session, I'm currently, by the way, based here in Manila, Philippines. So it's evening here now. I'm going to give a presentation on why it is necessary, or why is it essential, and the importance of doing research at a very early age. So what we're going to do today is to argue that there's a need to build the next generation of early career researchers, as given to me by Leonard, who invited me to this presentation. So I understand I have been introduced earlier. I'm with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. I also teach with a number of universities. But what is more important would be I am the managing editor of BMC Global Health Research and Policy. And I think I am known more in Africa for being the founder of Global Health Focus. By the way, Leonard, if there are questions, please do just interrupt me. I am very happy to answer some of the questions that would come from the audience.
All right, Prof. All right.
Yes. So this is one of the programs. This is a photo of the program that we have been doing in different parts of the world. And this is what we call the Global Health Emerging Leaders Program. And this one was done in Egypt. I will explain further later on what is research and why we do research in this program and what has been the impact of our initiatives and activities. We just want to probably, I understand that you are going to go deeper into the cycle of research in your training. Just a brief introduction on what research is. Research is the organized and systematic method of finding answers to questions. So there are many questions in the world which we want to answer. It makes it research initiative when it is organized and systematic in terms of the methods in getting to the answers. So basically, there is it is an approach where it is broken into pieces, and there are clear steps in order to get into the conclusions. And it is something organized because it has a planned structure or method used so that you can get into the answers. Of course, if there are no questions, there can be no research. So that is basically what research is. These days, research is defined as the creation of new knowledge because we have created a lot of knowledge, and there are new and creative ways to as well as to generate new concepts, methodologies, and understandings. I think this is familiar to you because this is what we call reviews. We have different kinds of reviews where we look at different findings the past years, decades, and where we try to make something out of this many findings. So that's one other aspect of research. But for me, research would also be a form of archiving history, sort of. So we look at a certain phenomenon now, for example, COVID or Ebola, and this, when we try to document it in a systematic way with a research question, and we archive it in the future, there might be a use for it. And so I also look at the archiving role of research as part of the cycle and as part of the reasons why it is also important. Now, for young people like you who are in the audience, why do we have to do research? So there are many reasons why we do it. And of course, I think what is important for most of us, because it answers big global questions. Big questions of the society, for example, searching for the COVID vaccines, and it helps humanity in general. There are also reasons why universities do lead a lot of researches, because universities are the ones who are in the center of creating all these findings, and that is basically a major part of what universities do. And research is central in ranking of all these universities. And so most of the popular universities where we all want to go, the top universities of the world, we know that they are top because of the research outputs that they have. They produce all the Nobel Prize winners, and they have all they can answer many big questions of the world. For this session, I think what is most important is the role of research for us as an individual person. So why do research at a very young age? I mean, a young age, I would mean normally in the undergraduate level. So let us try to understand this more. So we normally encourage individuals to really start to get into research and publications, which means writing, because this will be at an early age a good training ground for everyone. Eventually, if you work for the government, if you work for the international organizations, and especially if you work for the academe, you need to have a strong background when you are given data. You have the skills to translate the data into understandable findings, whether you're going to make a report for your boss, you're going to make a report for the public, or eventually you're going to come up with publications and scientific papers. So even at the high school level, I am sure you already have been doing actually a lot of writing, and that's already a very good start in terms of having a career in research. So it also develops your ability for scientific inquiry. You, whenever you see a phenomenon, you translate it into a question, or you have a question about it, and then it develops your ability to look at a certain method so that you will be able to answer the research question which you are thinking about. So those are some of the things why we do research. And again, I mentioned that as a medical student, for example, or as a pharmacy student, or as a laboratory student, you can already look at things around you, whether you are in the lab or whether you are in the hospital or within your within your environment, and you can always ask questions about things happening around you, whether it's a certain disease or whether it's a certain phenomenon. And then you can publish about it and then share it through your publications. Because who knows, these publications will be read by others, and eventually they will learn something from it and make use of it for the same situation in their own place. What I emphasize in our initiative is the ability to develop one's personal portfolio and build your CV as early as possible. The reason for this is many of you are very ambitious, particularly those who come from Nigeria. I have met many Nigerians, young and old, and really many of you are very competitive. All of you want to go to the top universities of the world. And of course, it will become a tough competition when everyone is very good. And so you have to have you have to have an edge by having a very good CV. So what do I mean by a good CV? When you apply for master's program or PhD program, you have to show that you already have a good background in terms of writing or in terms of doing research. And publications would really be the best indicator in showing this, in showing having a very good CV. So we have already done this in Africa. We have done this with many individuals, particularly from Nigeria. And we have shown that many of them who have been publishing are actually the ones who easily get into the top universities of the world. It is because it really shows your intellectual ability, your analytical skills, and your other capacities as a person in terms of academic abilities. And that would really show on your CV if you have been doing these publications and researches. So it makes you very, very competitive. Now, some of you might not be interested to become academics or professors in the future, but still, having research publications would really help a lot because, for example, some of you who are in the field of health would like to join the World Health Organization or the World Bank. And with these organizations, you still have to handle data. Even if you work for the government, you have to handle data, you have to handle information, and this information will be systematically analyzed because you have to come up with different reports. So you actually use your research skills in any aspect of your life, whether it will be working for the academe or working for international organizations. And for some of you who are clinicians, I think, well, it's not that I think, but the best clinicians are actually the scientists and the ones who are doing research. So if you would notice, most of the books that you read are actually written by researchers. And it is unfortunate that many of the books that we read in the developing world, in the low and middle income countries, would come from the West. And it is not because that we don't see the diseases, when in fact, most of the diseases are in the developing world, particularly when it's infectious diseases. But yet, those who are writing about them are those who come from the West, and they're the ones publishing about it. Why not those who see the diseases, those who see the patients with infectious diseases, for example, particularly in Africa, will be the ones writing the books that medical students, that nurses, that pharmacy students read. So, and thus, it is really very important that we start getting everyone into research and publications. And so, therefore, once we do this, we advance the science of medicine. And who knows, one of these days, one of you will become the Nobel Prize winner for medicine and physiology. So, in other words, we have all the reasons why we have to do research, and it would be better if we start at a very young age. Because eventually, as we accumulate publications and researches at a very young age until we grow older, then we will have a very big, a huge portfolio of what we have been doing. And that makes us one of the experts in the field that we are working on. So if you would notice, many of you would like to go to the top universities of the world, whether it's Oxford, it's Cambridge, or Harvard. And these universities are in the top because they are doing a lot of researches. So that's why you have to show your best that if you want to be accepted by these universities, you really have to have a very good portfolio, especially those who want to do masters and PhD in these universities. And especially if you want to earn a scholarship from these universities, because it becomes more competitive. So in doing research, we have to know the methods. I think this will be covered in your training program. We'll just brush a bit with this. And the method that you're going to use would really depend on what is your research question and the time you are considering for your data collection and analysis. So it can be an observation or interview method, can be qualitative or quantitative, or it can be a survey. It depends on the luxury of time, and of course also on the budget that you have for your researches. I think the training program that you will undergo will be having a lot of these discussions in more detail. So how do we do research? As I mentioned, it's a systematic method, and there are steps in doing it. And the step one would be to identify and define the issue or question. What are we trying to answer? Your question has to be very specific. Don't ask big questions because big questions are difficult to answer. Ask very specific questions. And then you decide on what direction by identifying a focus and refining the question. Because even smaller questions still have much smaller sub-questions, which can become a research question in itself. And the more simple it is, the better, so that you can have a focus on what you are doing. Then eventually you organize the work plan to answer the questions. So this is now the method section. Whether you're going to do a qualitative or quantitative, whether it's laboratory-based or whether it's a population-based study. Then you collect the information based on your method. So this is the data collection to help answer the research question. Now, for some of you who are more familiar with surveys, some of you would come up with very long questionnaires. Be very careful when coming up with questionnaires, for example, because many of your data that you will collect will not be of use later on. So from the very start, you should already know what exactly are the questions that you want to ask, so you will not be wasting your time from the start until the analysis of your data. Eventually, you organize the information collected. So you put them together, you lump them together so that you come up with tables, for example, or you come up with themes if it's qualitative, and then you eventually draw conclusions from it when you do your analysis. And then the most important thing is, one of the important things is translating it into a research report, whether it's an original article or whether it's really a report for the funding agency, so on and so forth. Then eventually, as a researcher, you really have to reflect on what you did and how you did the work by evaluating the things that you have done. So this is what we call reflexivity, wherein you ask questions. For example, like, did I violate anything? Did I do anything unethical in the research process? What were the weaknesses with what I did? What changes can I improve on later on when I do a similar research in the near future? So by doing this cycle repeatedly, eventually you will have the hang of doing researches, and it will be easier for you later on. And as you progress in life, of course, you will be you will become research managers, principal investigators, where you do more management of big research programs. So when I say big research programs, we are talking here of millions, or for some researches or programs, it will be billions of US dollars, for example. Okay, so that's the research cycle. And as I mentioned, your methods would really depend on your research question. There are many basic methods, but there are also innovations of these methods. You have observation or participant observation. So for my PhD, for example, I did this. And you can use surveys, which can be quantitative when you analyze it. You can have interviews, in-depth interviews, key informant interviews, so on and so forth. They're just variations in names, but they are all interviews. Or you can have focus groups, or laboratory experiments, or social experiments. There are so many of them. Or you can make use of secondary data analysis or archival study. Now, I think secondary data analysis will be good for the emerging researchers because you may not be doing a lot of field work, and all of this data are available online. And nowadays, we would normally do more or less mixed methods approach in many of our researches, especially because many of the funding agencies would prefer having a mixed methods approach towards our research. So this means a combination of either a quantitative and qualitative, or I normally would do a survey, a population-based survey, and in-depth interviews. So for a disaster research I did here in the Philippines, I combined quantitative, I did a survey of the population, and I also did in-depth interviews. And of course, the way you process the data would be different, and the way you analyze the data would be different. But later on, you'll combine all the findings together because you have to come up with a synthesis of all the data collected. And then there are many methods of analyzing the data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. I think this is really advanced for you. But for some of you, it would just be easy to use Excel if you are you're just starting, just by using basic statistical methods for your data. Now, if you have qualitative, in vivo would be easy for you, or you can just do it manually, especially if you just have a few respondents for your research. Okay, now, young people like you, I think this is very important because not many of you would deal at once with data collection, but you really want to start having scientific publications online. And so you can have original articles from your researches that you are doing, but you can also start writing papers, writing manuscripts. So a manuscript is a paper which is still not published. Once it's published, it becomes a publication. So you can write manuscripts such as reviews, which would be easier because you're just doing secondary data of secondary analysis of secondary data. Or you can do commentaries, which is more or less still a scientific approach. However, I think this will just be good for you to have a good profile when it comes to having publications. Later on, you will see the publications that we have been doing, whether they are commentaries. Perspectives are normally longer commentaries, and many journals have this. Or you can do letters to the editors, which are also important. That's why they are there, because journals are interested in these kinds of publications. You can you can have reports or short reports and case studies. And there are now a number of publications which are just focused on methods or methodologies without any data. So it would depend on the journal where you are submitting, and you have to look at the different kinds of publications or articles that they accept in that journal, so that you don't waste your time when you want a targeted journal for a certain publication that you are interested in. And so this is what I do as a managing editor. I look at all these kinds of publications, pretty much read them or reject them. And once you have the publications, the major question that you would want to ask is, what journal should it be? In fact, just today, on a daily basis, I always deal with Global Health Focus, where we discuss many publications and we deal with a lot of journals. So I have to discuss with the team almost every other hour on where to submit, what the scope of a journal where we are submitting. And if you are not sure about the journal, you have to check whether the journal has published something similar to your publication. That's what we normally do. If we see a publication similar to ours, we submit it there, and then we try our luck that it will be accepted. And then you have to know what the journal's restrictions are, because as I mentioned, there are different kinds of articles that journals accept. And there are word counts, restrictions. There are also payments, which is a bit of a pain, especially for young researchers. But later on, I will show you how we did it, where our authors and researchers did not pay. And then some of you would be interested with the journal's impact factor. So we came up with a number of with a list of journals where we could publish for free, and there are actually so many of them. You have nothing to worry about, and all you have to do is to be very meticulous and have patience in looking for the journals. PubMed has 30,000 journals listed, and so that's really a lot for you to choose from. All you have to do is really do search and check of every journal. So do not be disheartened if sometimes journals do not accept, because probably it's a very busy journal. There are many submissions. You can always move to another journal. It doesn't mean that your your manuscript is bad. So these are just some examples of some of the journals. Leonard, at this time, I've been talking for 30 minutes. Are there questions?
Questions. I will project them now. Then you can ask. One of the first questions that came up was I'm going to bring it on the screen now. I don't know if you can. I'm going to exit your screen now. Can you see the screen? Yeah. So
That's
this
okay.
is from Oluwatosin Iriowo. Her question rather was, how do I get to write a good stroke and outstanding research proposal? So that was her question rather.
How do I get to write good, outstanding research proposal? So
Yes.
I think what is being asked here is how to write a proposal. So that will be the method. And again, it would depend on your research question. There is outstanding or excellent or good. I think I would just say come up with a logical proposal. come up with a systematically written proposal where the method would really be able to answer the research question. And if you want it to be judged, share it with your colleagues or with others. So a proposal would be very good. So this is what I do with my PhD and with my master's students. If you follow so you have one major research question, you have your goals and objectives, and then the methods would fit into the goals, will be able to answer or address the goals and objectives of the research. Then do not veer away or not go far from in terms of methods, away from your research question and so as your goals and objectives for your research. You don't really have to, the methods would really fit into into the research question. Do not go beyond that. So that would be something that would be a very logical proposal and a well done proposal.
All right, thank you, Prof. Then another question that came up, although I couldn't project it, was that how do, Prof, as an undergraduate student, how do I get to combine my study then also with writing articles? So I know you have a whole lot of experience with some Nigerians, even in this regard. So I know you will be able to share very good experience in that regard. So the question is, how do I actually combine my undergraduate studies and also at the same time writing articles for publications in journals?
Okay, we will, let's park that question because later on I'm going to give examples, and then maybe the second part of the presentation will be able to answer that question. Okay. I will continue with my presentation because we have limited time, and then we will see how we did it with many young Nigerians and Africans. Actually, not only Africans, all over the world. We did a lot of research. So we will go to that now. I'm going to share again my screen. So we have that question. Okay, so these are some examples of the journals where it is free. For example, we came up with a study on hair during the lockdown, and we submitted it to the International Journal of Trichology, and that is free. We know that hair issues were very much a major part of the COVID pandemic issues happening to everyone. And so we came up with such. If you're interested in so these are all PubMed index journals. So we are emphasizing on publishing with PubMed so that you have to have a good presence in this indexing companies. We have the Maritime Journal, for example, if you're interested in fishermen or seafarers, or anything that has got to do with the sea. In fact, I sit in the board of this journal because this is one of my research areas. Now, I'm not going through the details of publications. I will just go directly now on the examples of on how the peer review process is being done, because this is where I come in as a managing editor. So you submit your manuscript, whether it's a letter or whether it's an original paper, a review paper, or a commentary or a perspective, and then it goes to me as one of the editors, and then I assess it. If I don't like it, I normally would reject the manuscript right there and then, reject without peer review. So that is why you have to really have a good manuscript when you submit it. I am very meticulous, even up to the periods. Leonard knows this because when he submits sometimes when he shares his output, I would really look at the periods and the commas and the wrong spellings and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to let you pass if you don't send me a perfect manuscript or a perfect draft. So that's a reason for rejection. If I see errors, just by reading the abstract, I can already reject a manuscript. If it is good, and it fits the journal, it's sent to reviewers. The reviewers review it. If they want revisions, it goes back to the authors, and then the author resubmits. And then until it gets reviewed by the editor again and it gets accepted, and then or rejected. If it gets accepted, then it goes to production and eventually publication. So basically, this is a simple sort of research process in terms of the peer review process. Maybe some of you will ask later on. Now let's discuss global health focus, because this, I think, where people are interested in. So global health focus was established so that we can come up with communities of thinkers, leaders, and innovators. So we are looking here, thinkers, we are looking here at researchers. We are looking at emerging young individuals whose work at a very young age will translate to global health policy and practice. We started this in 2015, and in fact, we are now doing a lot of work in Africa and in Asia. So these are some of the publications that we have been doing. These are just a few of the examples. So what we're trying to show you here is that simple things or simple data from the hospitals where you are working as a student or as a nurse, you can make use of the data. We had a paper on, for example, blood pressure measurement techniques in Rwanda, or a paper on just anything on reproductive health. Be very good in writing, in looking at certain phenomenon that you want to write into a paper. And some of you, I will be, if you are part of our initiative, we will be having a webinar on writing grants, and this is one of the grants that we won, where we looked at a population of individuals who will go to Mars. Now the rover is there, and Dubai, UAE has one of the rovers will be going there soon. And we won this prize in tandem with the other activities of the X Prize, the space competition, where we model the population who will go to Mars and what will happen with them. So this was a combination of population health, public health, and astronomy. The good thing with this is we actually work this with undergraduate students. So this is how we collaborate with undergrad students. And there are many publications that have been coming up from undergraduate students in Africa. For example, some of the graduates of Global Health Focus Emerging Leaders Program from Tanzania came up with this study published in Adolescent Health and Medicine and Therapeutics. Contraceptive knowledge, sexual behavior factors associated with contraceptive use. You can do that in your universities. That will be very easy. It's just a survey, and you analyze it statistically. You probably know Anikan. He did a paper on an analysis of pharmacy workforce capacity in Nigeria. So these are all online data, and you just translate it into a publication. So Anikan did this when he finished his undergraduate pharmacy in Nigeria. So even the simple study on what motivates open defecation. And this is not a minor journal where we published. It's a qualitative study from a rural setting in Nepal. And this is a +1 paper. So do not be afraid when you are looking for research questions, because it can be as simple as this ones. Use of paracetamol among outpatients, for example, that could be one. This is in Bhutan. These are all outputs of GHF-related papers, and could be the prevalence and mortality of some form of diseases in any country. I'm sure you have the data. It can be even as simple as a bear and patterns of bear mole injuries in a certain country. So you can talk about dog bites, for example, or you can write about just any certain disease. And there are so many diseases that we encounter. During the pandemic, we came up with a COVID publication program where we looked at different aspects of the pandemic. So I work a lot with Yusuf Adebisi, and we came up with a commentary which we published with Global Health Research and Policy. The good thing is we published this at the very early part of the pandemic, and now it's one of the most cited papers. And you know well that Adebisi just finished his pharmacy degree in Nigeria, together with our co-author, another student from China. And so we came up with this publication. We also had publications, for example, on the health professions and the impact of COVID. And these are many other publications that we have, whether it's, I normally, when I see a certain phenomenon, and I think about it. So whether I'm watching the news on CNN or BBC or Al Jazeera, those are the sources of all the information or the phenomenon where I have a number of questions. For example, if I see that doctors are being repatriated back to home countries to help in the COVID, then I work with some of our network in those countries. So these are a letter which we submitted, and we came up with this publication recalling doctors back to Bhutan. I have a very good we have a very good network of young researchers. Many, I think a big percentage, are all undergraduate students. They just came up with so many papers. And this is one of the papers. Rural communities in Africa should not be forgotten. This was done by Isaac and then co-authored by other undergraduate students. You see how prolific they are when they come up with studies and with topics. And this paper on conflict and COVID in Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is a country where there are normally conflicts happening, we tried to put together the conflict and COVID and came up with a commentary on it. So you have to be very smart when coming up with publications. So this publication is done together with undergraduate students. And this is one of the top journals, Conflict and Health. We did another paper on addressing COVID in Afghanistan. So we are doing a number of papers on every country in Africa and in Asia, because we are going to come up with a book on the COVID in these regions. So every country, we assigned it to many undergraduate students, whether you're Nigeria working on Egypt, or a Nigerian working on Sierra Leone, so on and so forth. And these are mostly undergraduate students. And this happened and is still happening now because the pandemic is still ongoing, and many of our publications have been submitted to journals. So this is another example. We did one on DR Congo, and these are again undergraduate students and young doctors. We did a number of papers on Sudan about COVID also. So these are all just desk research papers. We don't go to the field, but we make use of available data online. Impact of COVID on access to healthcare in low and middle income countries, again done by undergraduate students, mostly from Nigeria. There are so many of them who did this, and this is the top journal on health planning and management. So a number of my favorite undergraduate students from Nigeria, they came up with COVID-19 pandemic, medical and pharmacy education in Nigeria, its impact based on the experience. And they submitted it to an international journal. Another example is COVID in Malawi. And then this one, again, with Yusuf, we talked about COVID and typhoon. So look at some phenomenon and testing, hospital and community pharmacy, medicine security during COVID, and so on and so forth. And these are some of the papers also on Yemen, in drug supply shortage during COVID in Nigeria. So you have to know where you can submit it for free, or you will have issues with the payment. And so these are some of the countries. I think Nigeria, you would probably be paying full, or if not, percentage waiver for BMC journals. I'm not going to go through the details of APC. It is very important probably that you have to have a Google Scholar so that you can see your progress and others can also see your work. So if you have to apply for scholarships, they can easily see your profile online. And so this is Adebisi Yusuf, and I call him the poster boy of the intellectual Africa, because he really is an outstanding young man who still is in the undergrad, and he just graduated with more than 50 publications to his name. And in fact, his age index now is 9, and that really is an impressive achievement for undergraduate students. And there's so many of them from the ones I've been mentoring in Nigeria. And so also get your names. Try to choose journals which are in PubMed. Also have an ORCID account. And this, again, a Debisis account, where it will really show your publications. Because every time you write, you just keep on adding and adding. So for this year, we have a goal for those who are doing publications with us. I think Leonard will be working with you also in publications. We have a theme for this year, which is 21 in 2021. That means within the year 2021, you should have at least 21 publications. So our network members are really very ambitious now, especially that they already have so many publications. So before we have the research, and oh yes, we are also coming up with books. So many of you will be probably joining us in writing books. I hope you can contribute some book chapters. We will open the call in the near future. And one of the things that I want to emphasize also is for you to be able to write grants based on what you are doing. So there are so many grants for undergraduate students, and some of them are really, really quite big. And for this one, the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, there are many who already won from those who we mentor. And these are really quite substantial grants. For example, 5,000 British pounds, which is already a lot for an undergraduate students. This one is even better because undergraduate students already won this at 10,000 US dollars. And in fact, now one of the leaders of Global Health Focus has won 25,000 US dollars to implement an advanced program for tobacco harm reduction. So these are all part of the research. And so I will end here. That is my email. And we will now go to questions. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Prof, for this great opportunity that you afforded us to learn from your word of wisdom. We really want to say that what you've shared with us is not something that can be bought with money. There are some few questions here, and I know even after this, because you've shared your email, they are going to bombard your email with so many emails requesting for mentorship and all the likes. So the first question here is, I'm going to be bringing it up. Okay, let me stop sharing your screen so that you can see.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Now, yeah, the question is from Taiwo Owuyemi, and the question is, do I have to collaborate with a professor or professors when publishing, or can I do self-publishing? So that is the question, sir.
That is a very good question, and this is a very important question. One is, journals are are, are are very particular with the people that they publish. So if they see that they are all undergraduate students, the chance of it being published will be very low. I will admit that because I do that. I check the profile of the authors. So I would value more manuscripts with professors on every manuscript, because it really helps a lot in terms of the credibility of the manuscript of the article and also the credibility of the journal. So I would always encourage you to publish with your professors. You can write and then share with them if they like. And also the professors will help check. So that is what we do at Global Health Focus, because I always try to publish with many of these students. So in other words, I provide some of the credibility of the manuscript that we submit rather than only purely students. Another thing is, universities do not like their students publishing without the knowledge of the university. Not because the universities do not like it, it's because they don't want to tarnish the name of the university in case the publication is plagiarized or copied, and that really will be a one hell of a headache for the university. So that's why some universities would prefer clearance whenever you're going to use the name of the university. So many of young people are very ambitious. They don't want their professors to publish with them. I normally discourage that, because just in case the publication which you are writing is very sensitive, the most senior author should be able to defend it. And the most senior author, in my case, it's always me. So that's why I really provide advice and also scrutinize the content. And then if it's mostly undergrad students handling a sensitive topic, then probably if there are big questions that the society will ask or the public will ask, and there will always be things that will happen like that, then it will become a big headache to the university. So ask permission from your teachers or publish with them. At the end of the day, universities want publications with the name of the university because it adds up to the ranking.
Thank
That's
you,
my
Prof. Yeah, I well answered, and I know that that has been taken. Then there is another question here too that I'm going to bring up. Okay. Now the question is, what advice can you give to those who do not have experience in research? So I know you've been talking a whole lot about this, so you can just still speak to this if any, sir.
Okay. So those when you say research, I think those really very detailed methods. I think that's what they mean. But you can now start writing. Normally, I call it hacking research 101, where you start writing. You actually already have been doing research when you were in high school. You have been writing papers, essays, where you collect data and information or literature. You come up with an essay, and that essay is already a form of publication, for example. So
Okay.
that's already the start. You don't say that you never had experience with research because you already did, even in high school. So if at this level you want to write a commentary, for example, commentaries would only have 10 to 15 references, 1,500 words, submit it, then you have a publication. Is it a research? Yes, it is a form of research, but packaged in a form of a commentary, for example, because you also did some of the methods of doing doing a research approach. Others wouldn't call it research, but that is part of the research cycle, where you look at literature and where you review papers. So you don't say that you don't have an experience of research, because that one, having publications with commentaries or reviews, is already a form of research. You just have to read and then write, period, and submit.
Thank you so much, Prof. Basically, I think quite a whole lot of them have you've spoken to all the questions. Then, although not here, the question is in some cases that actually rose from the question that was asked by Taiwo, having to publish with your professor also. Then the question the person asked was, assuming there was a case, for example, where a professor has to call a student because the student was actually over publishing. So in that case, what advice can you actually give to such student? Because that have actually it has come up so much in our forum where people will be asked to stop using the name of the university to publish. So how do you actually what advice can you give to such individual in that case?
Okay, very good question because I already experienced this. I know young people, you're very ambitious. Let's just admit it. Your ambition fuels your like to publish as an individual person. You want to show off. Let's just admit that. At the end of the day, you're not as seasoned as your professors as a researcher. I would even get angry at some individuals who are already tackling big information. For example, criticizing the work of the World Health Organization. Come on, you even haven't done any masters on global health, for example, and then you come up with a commentary on an analysis of the work of the World Health Organization. So I said, calm down. This topic is not for you. So what you have to do is really have the humility of working with your teachers, not necessarily the professors, your lecturers, and then try to ask advice. Because maybe you hit it once, you hit it twice, but there will be times that you might not be hitting it all the time. The university is there not because they want to stop you from publishing, it's because they are taking care of the name of the institution. And that will be very difficult if you tarnish the name of the institution in case your publication is rejected, in case you used wrong data, in case you use fake data, and that will kick you out of your university. So do not temper down your ambition, temper down your that aggressiveness, and then have the patience of being mentored. Always ask your seniors whether this is a good topic or not, and ask permission whether it's okay to use the name of the university. And that is the reason why I always emphasize that if you don't ask your professors to publish with you, at least I publish with you because I come from another university and I would check the publication, and that will save you from being grilled by your university because I will be the one defending you as a senior author. So temper down your being ambitious and temper down your, that you just want to be famous. Like everyone in Nigeria is so competitive. Slow down, guys.
Prof. All right.
I know I've been there a million times and worked with many of you. So just slow
Yes,
down and try to learn. And eventually, once the time comes, you can publish millions.
yes,
But
that's
for now,
correct, Prof.
always work with the senior authors like your professors.
Thank you, Prof. There's equally a question here. I know we may not be able to take a whole lot of questions. I think there's a wrong. I think was trying to speak to Scoopy review, not Scopus review. So
Okay, okay,
I think the question is, I would like to know a short and precise explanation of what scoping
okay.
scoping review is
Review.
all
Yeah.
about. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
Prof.
I'm going to answer two questions. What is Scopus and what is scoping review?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
There are, as I mentioned, research now doesn't need to be like primary data. You can have, because we have been producing and producing millions and millions of publications. So all these publications can now be used as the data, and that is what we call a review. We review all the information, and that review is a research article in itself. And this is the category of review papers. And there are many kinds of review papers. There's a systematic review, scoping review, literature review is also a form of review, and rapid review, and so on and so forth, as long as there's a review word. So systematic review and meta-analysis. Leonard has done this. And scoping review we're not saying that it's the easiest, but it will be good for you because it's a bit easy for an undergraduate student to do a scoping review. And just read the definition online. Everything is easy to understand because there's so many of them. Now, going to scope, if you have to find a journal, try your best that it will be a Scopus journal, which means that it's an indexing organization or entity or company where they only consider the top journals, and because they are already reviewed, these journals being the top, and therefore there's a lot of credibility with that journal. If you publish with them, that means you are a good researcher. And we have been hitting many of these Scopus journals. So that's two answers for that question.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Prof. I think for the want of time, we may have to end this session. We believe that in no distant time, we have an opportunity to have you speak to us again. And I know it's because of COVID. If not, you should have visited Nigeria for the past 1 year or so, because we know that you've always been visiting to speak to undergraduate students about research. So we are really very grateful for this opportunity you've afforded us. And all we want to say is thank you, and we are grateful for all you do. And for the for this webinar that will be coming up regarding your training on research proposal writing, that is a grant writing rather, will also be on the lookout to share with our contacts to make sure that a whole lot of us equally attend. So thank you so much, Prof, and we wish you all the best for the excellent speaking to us, for agreeing to be the keynote speaker for this present training that is ongoing. Thank you so much, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors, sir. Thank you, sir. So we want to appreciate everyone that has joined this meeting. The training continue tomorrow. This is just the session of like the keynote presentation. We are going to be coming up with the technical session from tomorrow, where each of what Prof have actually spoken to will be trained on them. So tomorrow we'll be having about two trainings. For each of them, we're going to be for like 45 minutes. So make sure you do well to join in, and it's still going to be on the same channel. And then we're going to be sending across to us the link that you will use to join for tomorrow. So we want to wish you all the best, and we see you. Do well to also, you can follow us on Twitter at researchhub_ng. Then you can equally join us on Facebook at Research Hub Nigeria. You can join us on LinkedIn at researchhub.ng. Then for email, you can send an email to admin@researchhub.ng. Then for the website, you can actually log into www.researchhub.ng. So we want to thank you for tuning in, and we see you tomorrow for tomorrow's session. Bye for now.